Okay, Tinga and I, just kidding. She's really mad that I'm starting to sew again. She gets pretty upset every time. Um, I wanted to take time. I promised people I would make a video of the mask I'm making. Sorry this took me so long to get to. Between work and sewing till like 1 o'clock in the morning, I haven't had a lot of time to make this video. I am making it now because we all know things are getting closer to reopening, and there's going to be stipulations that people have to have a face covering, and obviously it's been recommended that people wear a mask, and I wanted to show people how to sew a mask when you're not a professional seamstress like me. I really actually suck at sewing. I'm lucky in that I was raised always having to learn how to sew a little bit. Again, my skills are very not refined, so that's why I think this mask pattern is actually really great for people that are not good sewers because it gives you room for error. And I think that's super important, but that's just me. So let's get down to it. This is everything I'm using to sew a mask. I'll explain why as we go. I have Auto Shop towels, more to come on that. I have pipe cleaner that people have donated to me to make masks. This is what some people are using for the nose piece. Other people are using bread ties. I mean, people are getting pretty creative. A lot of people out there actually do not make a mask with a nose piece because depending on how many washes this is going to go through and how often you wash, it's actually going to potentially rust and ruin the fabric in the mask. So you have to decide if you want wire or not. I prefer to make mine with, just because I hand wash all of my masks, so I'm not so concerned about this because I'm very gentle on them. I'll explain the tape later on as we go. Just know that this is one of the things that you need. I actually do not measure everything I sew. I just have this strictly so I can tell you guys what my dimensions are. If you have elastic for the ear pieces, I am cutting it at about 9 inches. These ones came out to 10. I was probably pulling them on them a little bit when I cut them, but whatever. 2 pieces of elastic. I do 1/8 inch, or sorry, a 1/4 inch wide elastic. Some people use 1/8 inch, depends. If you don't have elastic, this is almost like a shoelace string type material. I have this cut to 40 inches. This works good for men's size heads and women's size heads, and still to be able to tie. I'll show you how to do both ear options, but just know that was cut at 40. You're gonna need a safety pin. I'll explain why later. Obviously a good pair of scissors. I keep scissors at my sewing station and at my ironing station because an iron is one thing you do need to do this mask. And then you're going to need the actual material for the mask, so the base part and the side pieces. So for the base of my mask, I have, let me line this up so you can see. I have created my pattern to be 15 inches by 8 inches. And the reason I did this is, again, I need wiggle room for little errors I make. A lot of the patterns I've seen for masks, they're doing smaller, but again, I stink at sewing, so I wanted something that I could work with well. And then again, you're going to need the 2 pieces for the sides. I have made my pieces about 7.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Every other pattern I've seen calls for about 5 by 2. I'll explain why as I'm sewing. I have made the choice not to do that. Again, I am not a good seamstress, so this is just what I have to do. Now, a lot of people do not have access to a serger, and so this is a design or a way to sew the mask for people that can't serge the edge of the fabric. Now, most people making masks nowadays don't know why that's important. Now, you can see this is already starting to fray a little bit, and if you left that unserged, every time you wash it, it will just continue and continue to fray. My mom and I are serging our masks, but this is a non-serge style I'm showing you guys. So how you start the mask when you don't have a serger is you're actually going to take the edge, fold it over about 1/4 of an inch, and another fold at about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, this is really important, again, if you're unable to serge those edges, to make sure you have a nice double fold. It has to be a double fold. If you fold it like this and sew here, this is gonna fray and make a mess of your mask, and it's gonna be destroyed the first time you wash it. So again, fold 1/4 of an inch, fold 1/4 of an inch, and give it a nice little iron. Not everybody irons as they're doing this. The reason I iron is I like to use as few pins as possible because, again, I'm just going to poke myself 500 times. And if you get really good ironed edges, you don't have to so much worry about pinning everything so it doesn't move while you're sewing it. So flip your mask, fold it over 1/4 of an inch, fold it over 1/4 of an inch, and again, give it a nice little iron. Now, I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine because I have both of my nice ironed edges, and I'm actually going to sew right down the middle of this one, but you have to make sure when you do that that you are catching this edge so that it doesn't fray. So sew right down here, and on this side, doesn't matter which side you do this on, to be honest, I go a little bit closer to the edge here because I'm going to be feeding this wire through for the nose. Now, some people make the choice to do a zigzag stitch right here. I don't do it just because I like throwing everything through my machine really quickly and I don't want to take the time to change my stitch. But just know some people do a nice little zigzag here, and that zigzag is going to show on this side, which people will be able to see. So if you just want it to look decorative, knock yourself out, do a little zigzag stitch. So I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew down these edges. Oh, Leo wants to play with you, Tinka. Okay, so those are now sewn, and this is how it usually turns out. And when I first started sewing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. It looks ugly. This just is what it is. So I actually find it easier to trim these pieces as I go. I did make a couple of masks where I didn't trim these as I went, and everything that just gets stuck in there and it becomes harder to trim it at the end. I take the time and kind of pucker this a little bit. My tension's really tight on my machine, but I kind of like it that way, so I just deal with it as is. So now you can see this edge is sewn nice down the center, and this one is a little bit closer to the edge, but everything is caught, so I don't have to worry about anything coming out and fraying. Now, again, not everybody has to use wire for the nose. Some people, again, choose not to just because this does have the potential to rust. I'm going to show you how to do it with putting this in. So you want to take the edge that you left a little bit of extra room in. You're just going to feed this through. Oh, I should explain this first. The reason my mom and I made the decision to put gaffer's tape on the edge is because when you cut these, there's wire that sticks out, and this will actually poke through the mask and poke you in the face. So you could take like a little piece of duct tape. We, again, are using a little bit of gaffer's tape because, hey, that's what we had. Putting it on the edges to protect from the wire so that it doesn't poke you in the face. Okay, so again, feed it through. It's gonna come through like this. I actually feed it through this way. Give it a little pull. It's nice and in there pretty even. The reason I don't go fully edge to edge is you're going to be sewing here. And again, you don't want to sew over any kind of wire in your machine because you don't want to break your needle. So you're going to put the wire edge facing this way. Again, this is the edge you sewed. So you can see that this is up. And you're going to take the bottom piece of fabric And I actually use my stitch line as my guiding line for bringing that up. Now I ever so slightly, again, am overlapping that edge because this is how we're now creating the pocket. So it's lined up here, the wire side, this is there. Give it a nice little iron. Again, you want to make sure everything is staying in place. So I iron all of my edges. And now we're gonna go ahead and pleat. So once you iron, make sure you flip it over so the wire side is now up and facing you. And pleating is actually really difficult. A lot of people have a hard time with pleating. When I started it, I was measuring everything because everybody says, oh, the first one should be an inch or an inch and a half or whatever. Let's be honest, nobody freaking cares. So for the pleating, you do actually want to make sure you have pins. This isn't something you can do and get away with just ironing. You do have to have those pins, and I'll explain why as I do this. Now, when I get ready to do my first pleat, you want to make sure you're under both ends of the fabric. And the way I'm measuring it is 2 finger lengths down, okay? At 2 finger lengths, I pinch and I start to roll over. And I roll till I can feel about 1/4 of an inch. And you can see, if I push down on this fabric, that there's about 1/4 of an inch of a roll making my first pleat. So you want to take your iron, and again, nicely iron that down, because the more you can iron, the better everything comes out in the long run. And then go ahead and throw your pins into your pleat. And now we're going to go ahead and start the second pleat. I just do 1 finger length, well, 1 finger width, I should say, pinch and roll for my pleat. And this one, if you can see, the underneath side is about 1/8 of an inch. So my pleat is getting a little bit smaller on the second one. Again, throw a nice little iron in there. I don't iron over these because some of them melt. Some people iron right over them. Don't do that. Don't recommend it. Throw a pin in for a pleat. And then now we're going to do the third and final. Again, 1 finger, pinch, roll. Okay, now you have again another nice 1/8 inch roll. Throw another little iron in there, pin your pleat, pin your pleat, and now you can see you have a pleated, starting to look like a mask. At this point, I flip it over and I just give it another nice little iron. That way the pleats are really getting in there. And I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and now I'm going to sew down about 1/4 to 1/2 inch into the mask. Honestly, it doesn't matter how far you sew in. Again, a lot of these tutorials are going to tell you, hey, sew this much. It doesn't matter in the long run. Okay, I choose to do this my way because, again, I make mistakes when I sew, and if I sew at about 1/4 of an inch this far into the mask, I can hide it when I put on the side pieces. So I'm going to sew again right down these edges, and then bring the mask back and show you guys the next step. Don't sew over the pins. A lot of people make the mistake of sewing right over them, and I can tell you right now, you're going to break your needle, and then you're going to have to go to the store, and you don't want to do that. As you sew is when you pull out your needles. It's actually really important on these masks to not pull out the needle too soon, so up to the needle, because as the foot is feeding the fabric through, it will try to expand it, and if you remove the needle too quickly, you'll get a left side of the mask that is bigger than the right side of the mask. So as you sew, pull the needle, sew to the next needle, pull it, sew to the next needle, and then you can finally pull it all the way through. Okay. So, put this back down here. Now, you can see that I have now sewn the edges, and like I said, I do it at about 1/4 of an inch. Again, if you take the time to trim these, it's just going to make your life easier. Honestly, this is all going to be tucked in, but I prefer to just take the time, cut all these little fray things off, and then I get ready to start the next piece. Okay, so you can see we have the top of the mask. This is where the wire is, the nice little pleats that we just made. If we flip this over, you can actually see that now we have our pocket. This is how we make the pocket. A lot of the tutorials are going to actually have you do a method that stitches to here, so you have a tiny little pocket. It makes it impossible to put filters in and out of this, so don't do that. It's better to actually have a wide pocket, and nothing's going to fall out anyway. So this is the next part. I actually do this backwards from a lot of tutorials, and the reason I do it is I have an easier time of hiding mistakes in the mask. So I flip my mask over so that the pocket side is up, and then I'm going to take my edge pieces. You want to put the design, if you're using a design, face down, and bring it to the edge of the mask and line it up. You're going to flip this over. Just go right to the edge. You don't want to go too far, otherwise you're going to get this little fold here. You don't want that little fold. Roll it over, roll it over. You want it tight, but again, not so tight that you're messing up the fabric. You do not have to iron this part. I'm just ironing it so I can show you guys that it is easier that way if you're fumbling with it. And then again, I'm going to sew at about 1/4 of an inch down here. I'm going to take the other one with me because I just go ahead and do the same step as I sew. So just do this on both sides. Now, I'm going to go over here to the machine. So you can see super quick and easy just to throw the other side on the same exact way I showed you on the other one. And so now you have both your edge pieces backwards, so it looks like it's inside out. Now what you do from here, again, I sewed at about 1/4 of an inch down there. You're going to go ahead and flip these out. So you have both edges flipped out. Now this side that has the opening, I actually prefer to flip at this point, and this is where I'm going to do my ironing from. I don't know why it works better this way for the next step, but it does. So just go ahead and give this a nice little iron, get it nice and straight, make sure these are pulled out. It's going to make the next step much easier. Okay, so you have the pocket side, you have the closed side, and you have this open side. Now at the beginning of the tutorial, when I said I make this longer than a lot of people, there will be a gap here. I have found when you go to feed the ear loops through, if you have that gap, you're going to have a harder time feeding it through. And when you feed it through this way, you can actually just pass it through without catching on it. So this is just my little trick to make it easier, and why, again, I sew it a little bit longer than a lot of people recommend you sew it. So this next step is actually pretty important. You're going to take these edges and you're going to pull them in ever so slightly. It's not a lot, it's just ever so slightly. And the reason you do this is because when you fold and you fold, you want to make sure those little edges aren't flying out to the side. So let's say you ironed this and these are puckered out ever so slightly. When you fold and you fold, you're gonna get these little edges that stick out, and those are going to fray and start coming out when you wash the fabric. So again, little trick, you take this, fold it in ever so slightly, fold it in ever so slightly, fold, and fold. Now I prefer, again, to fold a little bit beyond this just to kind of cover it and make it look nice and clean. I have seen people make really big folds and they do really dramatic edges. That's fine. I've seen people fold this over pretty dramatically and do it right up to the edge. That's fine. It's kind of whatever you prefer. I prefer to fold just barely beyond the edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew right down that edge. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, sew down this edge. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but over there. Fold it in slightly, fold it in slightly, roll over, and sew down this edge. So we'll take it to the machine. My bobbin just ran out. Hold on. I won't fully load it up because I don't want to make you guys wait and watch me do this. Okay, sorry. Now, we will continue on. So now do the other side. Again, make sure you fold it in a little bit, fold it in a little bit. Roll, roll. Okay, I'll show you what happened. It's just the bobbin ran out, and so I just had to do a second stitch on this side. So now you can see I folded those over, I stitched down the side. This is where you really want to make sure you take your time. Cut off these little edges because this is going to be the final product of the mask and you want to make sure it looks really nice. So now you have all of those little edges cut off. This is going to be the top side of the mask. This is the wire. You flip it over and now you have the pocket. So a lot of the tutorials, this is how the front side of the mask will look. But again, I do mine slightly backwards so that this is how the front side of the mask looks. In my opinion, it just hides little imperfections that you might make happen right here. So like if you can see, these didn't fully line up, and a lot of the front of the mask, if you do this step backwards, will look like that. And that's how you know you did the side piece in reverse. But this is how the finished mask looks on the front with the way that I prefer to do it. And now I want to show you how to put in the ear loops. So This is where you're going to take your safety pin. And for pretty much everybody at home, this is going to be the way you have to do it. If you're making a lot of masks, I'll show you this cool little tool my mom made me that makes this part a breeze. So you just put the elastic, pin it on the safety pin, close the pin. Now I have actually found it easiest to flip the mask over so that this is the pocket side, and I feed it through. The reason is that little edge isn't there to catch on if you feed it through on this side. And you're just going to pull the elastic through. Now, for people that are sewing a lot of masks, this is my mom's little genius tool she made me. It's a shish kebab skewer with a piece of, I don't even know what this is. It looks like a Christmas hook that she looped and made. So she has it taped down really far down here just because it makes it easier to feed through the mask. But all you do is you take this, feed it through, put the elastic through, and pull. So if you're going to be making a lot of masks, please steal my mom's awesome idea. This is the greatest tool I've ever had. Absolutely love it. And so if you're going to do the mask this way with elastic ear loops, you just tie a square knot, which is right over left, left over right, if you don't know how to tie a square knot. But I'm going to go ahead and take these out because I want to show you guys what to do if you can't find elastic, because let's be honest, elastic is the most impossible thing to find right now. So this is the other option for attaching it. This is how you would do it if you were tying the mask. So how you want to do this part is you flip it over so you have the pocket side and you have the wire side. Now you're going to take your safety pin, tie it to your string, and you're going to go this direction. You're going to go down away from the wire. Okay, so you put the safety pin through, feed it down away from the wire, and you want to pull it till you have however far that is, 6 inches, whatever it may be. And now you want to take this side and you want to go towards the wire. Okay, so you're going to feed this through, towards the wire, and you're going to feed it through. Again, leave about 6 inches. Now, again, if you do not have elastic for the ear loops, this is an awesome way that you can still attach the mask to your face. You'll put it on over your head, cinch down, expand your mask, and you'll take these edges and you just give it a nice little tie behind your head. Again, you can make these longer, you can make them shorter, you can kind of do whatever you want to attach it to your face. Oops, let me pull it a little tighter. There we go. And this is how you can do it if you do not have elastic. Okay, a lot of people think that this is more comfortable just because you don't have the elastic pulling on your ears, but that's how it works if you don't have elastic. Okay, super easy. You untie it, just go ahead and take it off. Now, again, a lot of people are able to find elastic again, and all you'll do is just tie the elastic to itself. I'm going to use my fun tool just because I can do it so much faster. Elastic, elastic. So again, just tie yourself a nice little square knot in the elastic. Nice little square knot. Now, some people want to hide these little elastic edges. If you are one of those some people, go ahead and take this and you just feed it and work it down into the mask. And now you can see that that little edge is hidden. when people get masks from me, I don't send it tied just because people want to tie it to whatever different length they prefer. And I just want to make sure people are comfortable. But again, if you're able to get your hands on elastic, you'll just go ahead, put them over. Again, you have the wire for the nose piece. And now you have a nice little homemade mask. Here's the last and final step that I was telling you guys would make sense here towards the end. All the research that has come out about masks basically say that this fabric isn't good on its own. And a lot of the people that have been doing research have found that, again, the little shop towels that you can get at AutoZone, O'Reilly, whatever it may be, you can find these at Walmart. You take one of those masks, or you take, sorry, one of the paper towels, cut a section about the size of the mask, and open your pocket. This is why I actually really like the way that my mom and I are doing the pockets on our masks, because a lot of the patterns have you sew up to here so that you have a small opening. Okay, it's gonna make this next part really hard, and this next part is probably one of the most important parts, is you need a filter to go in your mask. If you have a mask like you see the little surgical masks people are wearing around, great, just go ahead and slide that in here. It's going to keep your mask cleaner for longer and make your fabric mask way more effective. So once you get the shop towel in there, it's kind of nice because when you put this on your face, you have an extra filter in your mask, and a lot of people can't even tell that there's like a little filter in there. So again, just make sure when you make your mask that you are washing it at the end of every day. Washing the mask is just as important as wearing it at this point. If your mask is dirty, you're going to increase your odds of catching COVID-19. If your mask is clean, the odds of you not contracting and not passing on the virus increases. So make sure you wash your mask. Again, I wash my mask by hand in the evening and let it dry overnight. Just hang it on a door frame. It does pretty well. And the other important thing is make sure you change out these filters every single day. Those shop towels are really, really cheap. You can get a whole, like, I think I bought 10 rolls of it for $20. And I have been putting those in people's masks that they order from me and getting them tons and tons and tons of those for not very expensive. So really important step, make sure you have some kind of filter in here, change it out. Obviously don't wash the mask with the filter inside of it, but make sure you have a filter. So again, there you go. I know this video is now 33 minutes long, which seems like a long time to take to make a mask, but considering how much I stopped to explain things, I've timed myself, and these masks really only take 10 minutes to make, and it's a pretty good all-around versatile mask. If you guys have any questions about any of the steps that were confusing, please send me a message because I will gladly make follow-up videos and show you guys different ways to do masks and answer any questions that were a little confusing in this video. So again, I hope this helps everybody that is not a great sewer to be able to make a mask and stay healthy during this COVID-19 crisis that we are all going through. Thanks again. Stay well, everybody, and I'll see you on the other side of this.